Nobody tells you. That's the thing. Nobody sits you down and says, here is the complete, unedited, non-romanticized list of what your life becomes when you fall in love with a man who runs an organized crime syndicate in Osaka. They don't tell you because most people don't know. And the ones who know, the KOs of the world, the homos, the syndicate wives who refill your sake and change the subject, they don't tell you because you wouldn't believe them. And, honestly, they're right. I wouldn't have believed them. I barely believe myself. So let me tell you, all of it. The parts nobody posts about. The parts that don't make it into the poetry. Because it's been 5 years and I have earned the right to say this out loud. Marrying a Yakuza boss sucks in ways I did not have the imagination to anticipate. And also I would do it again. Both of those things are true, and I need you to hold them at the same time, because that is the entire experience. Let's go. I mean this literally, not emotionally, not as a metaphor. I cannot physically walk to the convenience store 2 blocks away without a man in a dark jacket appearing behind meet the optimal trailing distance of 6 feet. Not intrusive, not visible to most people, but there, always there. At first I thought this was romantic, protective. The Yakuza boss's wife, surrounded by loyal men who would die before they let harm reach her. Like a movie. Like a very specific kind of movie I had clearly watched too many of. Here is what it actually is. I ran out of oat milk on a Sunday morning. I know. Oat milk, very Portland of me, yes. But I wanted oat milk for my coffee, and I thought, the convenience store is literally visible from the kitchen window. I will run down and be back in 4 minutes. I got outside and turned around, and there were 2 of them. Different men from yesterday, same jacket. They bowed, waited, ready to escort me to the convenience store. I bought the oat milk. They carried it. Both of them. 1 bag of oat milk. 2 men, 6 feet behind me at all times. I got back to the kitchen, and Takashi was at the table reading. He didn't look up. He said, "Did you get what you needed?" I said, "Yes." I said nothing else because what is there to say? I now order groceries online. This one is harder to explain because it's not what you think. It's not that I don't know, and I'm tortured by not knowing. I chose not to know. There is a difference. We have an agreement. Full disclosure on everything that touches our life directly. Silence on the operational details I don't need and don't want. I thought this would be fine. Mature even. Adult. A measured division between the private and the professional. Here is what nobody tells you about that agreement. Sometimes you watch a man leave for work and he comes back 8 hours later and you have been painting in the East Wing studio and making lunch and playing with your toddler and living your life, and somewhere in the city that man has been doing things. Specific things. Things that required the specific train capability of his specific people. And then he comes through the gate and he takes off his coat and he says, "How was your day?" And you say, "Rico learned to open the refrigerator herself," which is a miracle and a problem, and he laughs and you eat dinner, and it's a good dinner, and nobody says anything. And then it's midnight and you are lying there, and your brain says, "But what did he do today?" And you chose not to know. And you lie there with the weight of the chosen not to know pressing down on your sternum at a specific angle. And the only thing worse than knowing is not knowing, and knowing you chose not to. Welcome to the geometry. I have a mother in Portland. She's a perfectly lovely woman. She asks about the paintings. She sends Rico American candy that is entirely too sugary, and Rico loves her for it. She video calls every Sunday at 9 a.m. Oregon time, which is the middle of the night here, but she is my mother, and I answer every time. She does not know what Takashi does. She knows he's in real estate and construction in the Kansai region. This is true. The same way an iceberg is partly above the waterline. She has met him 3 times. He is entirely charming to her. She approves of him. I have been managing this discrepancy for 5 years. I have been managing it by saying things that are true in a specific limited sense. By being unavailable when she asks about his work. By redirecting to Rico, who is inherently redirectable because she is 3 and she does extraordinary things constantly. You know what this is? It's exhausting. Not because I'm lying. I'm not lying. I'm performing a curated truth, which is different, which is what everyone does to some degree, but I'm doing it at a scale that requires active maintenance and has no end date. My mother cannot know. My Portland friends cannot know. My gallery contacts cannot know, or they half know, in the way that people in the Osaka art world half know everything about the Higashiyama residence and its residents, and nobody says it directly, because saying it directly would require something from everyone present that nobody is ready to give. I painted a piece called The View from Inside. The press called it one of the most significant exhibitions of the year. One review described the work as depicting the interior life of a woman living inside a beauty she understands to be partially constructed from violence. Nobody knows how accurate that is. I read the review at the breakfast table. Takashi was in the garden. He came in, picked up the review, read it, put it down, and said, "I told you the wall space would be worth it." I threw a persimmon at him. He caught it without looking up. That is the marriage in one interaction. This is the one I am most careful about saying out loud. There was a man, not going to name him, second in command, 17 years in the organization, elegant in the specific way of someone who acquired elegance through effort rather than birth. He started asking about my paintings. Specific, informed questions. Not performed appreciation. Real opinions about the work. It was the most flattering thing that had happened to me professionally in months, and I am not proud of how long it took me to understand what it actually was. He wasn't there for the paintings. He was there because I was the thing Takashi had that he wanted most, not me, the position I represented, the message that getting close to me sent. When I am a symbol of something, approaching me is a message to my husband. I can reach her. I am close enough to touch what you protect. He sent me a Meiji-era woodblock print. A woman on a bridge in rain. Extraordinary piece. Centuries of craft. Arrived in a case lined with cloth and a handwritten note. I stood in the studio holding that note for a very long time. Then I showed everything to Ko, the housekeeper who has worked for the Higashiyama household for 23 years and who has the specific energy of a woman who has seen the early stages of many things and knows exactly what to do about all of them. She said, "I will tell him." I said, "I was going to tell him." She said, "I know. I am telling you so you understand that I will also tell him." The man is in Kobe now. I did not ask what happened between the woodblock print and the transfer to Kobe. I painted for 4 days straight, and I still don't know what to do with what I made, but I know what it cost. This is what nobody explains. Being loved by someone powerful means that the power flows around you and through you whether you choose it or not. You are never just yourself in a room. You are also the message your presence sends. I am an artist. I came here to paint the light. I am also a leverage point. Both. Always both. There is a night that happened. I won't detail it. I came back from a gallery opening early, and I walked through the garden and into the east corridor of the house, and through the paper screen of the receiving room, I saw the shapes of 3 men and heard the specific quality of a silence that comes after something has already occurred. I kept walking. I went to the studio. I closed the door. I sat at the window with the northern light, which was gone because it was 10 p.m., so I sat at the window with the dark. And I did not paint for a long time. Takashi came to find me at midnight. He sat across from me. We looked at each other. I said, "I know what I married." He said, "Yes." I said, "I don't want the details. I want you to understand that I know." He said, "I understand." And then I said the thing that costs something in the saying, the thing that doesn't grow back exactly the same shape. I need to know if we are safe. Not me. We. This house. These people in it. He said, "Yes." I said, "Is that a real yes or a management yes?" He looked at me for a long time. And then he did the thing he almost never does. He reached across the table and put his hand over mine. The scar on his left hand under my palm. The scar I noticed the first day at Fushimi Inari, when he was reading a piece of paper in the rain, and I was sketching because I had no idea what else to do. He said, "It is the realest yes I know how to give." I believe him. I also know that the realest yes I know how to give is not the same as everything will definitely be fine. I hold that distinction every day. It is not a comfortable thing to hold. Riko is 3 years old. She is small and furious, and she has her father's jaw and my eyes, and she arranges her toys with the methodical seriousness of a CEO conducting a boardroom restructure. She does not know what this house is. She knows the koi pond, which she calls the big fish house. She knows Ko, who she has decided is a secondary grandmother, and behaves accordingly. She knows the 2 men at the gate, who she calls the door people, and who she has, on multiple occasions, attempted to give crackers to, which they accept with the formal gravity of men accepting tribute. What she does not know, that the door people are there because her father has enemies, and those enemies are not abstractions. They are specific people with specific motivations. What she will know, eventually, that her life has a geometry to it that other children's lives don't. That there are things her parents have chosen not to ask and things her parents have chosen not to tell, and that these choices are a form of love and also a form of complication. What she inherits from her father, the jaw, the specific stillness, the way she looks at things that interest her like they are worth understanding. What she inherits from me, the eyes, the noticing, the paintings when she is old enough to understand what the paintings are actually about. What she inherits from the life. That question. The one I couldn't finish painting for 6 months. The one that is technically a baby sleeping and is actually, what have you brought her into? I finished the painting. I have not answered the question. I sat down at the kitchen table across from Takashi when Riko was 2 and I said, I want to talk about the future. Not tomorrow. 5 years. 10. He put down his newspaper. He said, go on. I said, I need to know if there is an exit. Not an emergency. Not a crisis. A planned, structured, real exit. A version of this life where she grows up somewhere the geometry is smaller. He was quiet for a long time. Not stalling. Processing. The quiet of a man who has been carrying his own version of this question and is now being asked to say it out loud by someone with every right to ask. He said yes. 3 years. There are transitions that cannot be rushed, and I will not rush them because men who leave badly end worse. But there is a plan. I said Portland. He said I hate Portland. I said somewhere with good light. He said there is a property in Kamakura on the coast. The light there is what you said about the painting. It arrives and leaves without apology. I looked at him. I said, you've been planning Kamakura. He said, I've been planning a life where I am not what I am. It takes longer than the life took to build. 3 years. He said 3 years 19 months ago. Do the math. I'm doing the math. The math is why I paint in the East Wing studio every day with the northern light, and I don't look at the calendar too long, and I hold the 3 years promise with a specific grip of someone who believes it and is also aware that the gap between planning and arriving is where most things go wrong. 8 months ago, a woman walked into my gallery in Osaka on a Tuesday afternoon. She was approximately my age. Japanese. Extremely well-dressed. She looked at the koi pond painting for 11 minutes. Then she turned to me and said in perfect English, "You're better than I expected." I said, "I'm sorry?" She said, "He told me you were good. I wanted to see for myself." I said, "Who told you?" She said, "My brother." She said his name. A name I had never heard. A name that, in 5 years of this household, 5 years of full disclosure as our operating principle, 5 years of the scar under my palm, and the architecture of honest, had never once come up. She looked at me for a moment. She said, "He never told you about me." Not a question. I said, "Tell me your name." She said, "Mitsuki." She sat down. I sat down. She told me something. I have been sitting with what she told me for 8 months now. I have told Takashi I met her. I have watched his face do something I have never seen it do before, something I don't have a name for yet, which means I haven't finished understanding it. I have painted it. I have not painted it. I am still painting it. The last thing she said before she left, "Ask him what happened to the painter before you." The door closed. I have not asked. That is where I am right now. In the East Wing studio with the northern light. A question I haven't asked. A name that opens a room I didn't know existed. A man in the garden looking at the koi pond who contains more architecture than I have finished mapping. Rico is asleep. The door people are at the gate. Ko is somewhere in the house doing something efficient. The mountain is outside in the dark, changing color at a rate that requires patience. And I am sitting here telling you why it sucks to marry a Yakuza boss, the surveillance. The curated truths. The men who want to use you as a message. The information that changes shape in the dark. The exit plan that takes longer than 3 years. The child who will grow up asking questions you don't know how to answer. The name you've never heard. The painter who came before you. All of it. I am sitting here telling you all of it. And somewhere underneath all of it, underneath the door people and the woodblock print and the midnight studio and Mitsuki's 11 minutes, there is a man who came to my studio on a Friday with no warning and excellent sake and stood in front of the largest painting and said, "You paint the moment after the moment. Not what happens, but what remains when it's over." Nobody had ever said that about my work. But it was precisely what I had been trying to do for 3 years without knowing the name for it. A man who looked at what I made and saw what I meant. There are people who go their entire lives without being seen that specifically. I am not one of them. And that is why it sucks to marry a Yakuza boss. Not because you can't go to the convenience store alone. Not because you will hold information that presses on your sternum at 3 a.m. Not because there was a painter before you whose story you don't know yet. It sucks because you would do it again. Because the specific cost of this life and the specific gift of this life are inseparable. You cannot take the man who sees your paintings and leave behind the man whose scar you felt the first day at Fushimi Inari. They are the same person. That is what Hamo told me at the Syndicate Wives dinner when I was 3 months into this marriage and still trying to separate the what he does from the who he is. She said, "One day you will realize they are the same thing. That day decide if you can love the whole of it." I am still deciding. The canvas is not finished. The light keeps arriving. Ask him what happened to the painter before you. I'm going to. Just not tonight.